Hello, everybody. And Tony, great to meet you again. Can we start with your introduction?
Yeah, hi Paul. Hi everybody. My name's Tony Jones and I head up a DevOps platform team.
Great. So today I'd like to talk about, data centers and backups and cold standby, warm standby, and things like that. So I'd like to start by just generically having a conversation. And in the cloud, I think people are aware that the cloud is really physical because it's not intangible. It's called the cloud, but in some ways there is going to be some infrastructure somewhere, and it's going to sit in a data center, and it's going to consist of software and hardware and networking kit and so on. So there it is. Most people are going to be aware that good providers are going to have at least a backup system. So the first thing I'd like to pick your brains on is the scenario where you've got, you're going to be live in a data center and the provider is telling you that there is a backup, and you hear the word cold backup. And there's the example I can think of is a famous airline that had an outage over a weekend, and they tried to bring up their backup data center. It didn't work. So what is a cold backup? Sorry, a cold, standby system.
Sure. So typically that would be infrastructure which is available, but in an offline state. So by that, I mean that there would be some intervention in order to bring that into service. So typically that's what is meant by a cold setup, something which needs intervention to bring that into life.
And if you have something that's warm, I've heard that phrase too. Does that just mean less intervention, but still some? What does warm mean?
Yes. So in that situation, the infrastructure is available, maybe not with active use on that infrastructure, but sufficient infrastructure running that the process of moving traffic to it could be therefore quicker. You don't need to go through that manual step of bringing the infrastructure up. It is available already and then in an online state.
Okay, so I could imagine that if I call them data center A or cloud A, but data center A and data center B, they're both up running, systems are powered on, connectivity exists, software is running, but you still have to intervene by doing something. And that B system is warm. There's no active traffic on it, no customers. So then we get to the third category in my head, which I think, is it hot? You and I, Tony, and we did this years ago, didn't we? 2010, we first started talking about building this active-active. So you've got data center A and data center B, and let's say we had 1 million customers or 10 customers, just say 10, right? What does it mean it's active-active for those 10 customers? Are they all on A or all on B? How does it work?
So the idea now is that you balance and distribute those customers. You've got active use, connections to those data centers, active traffic. You therefore know that the service, the infrastructure, the functionality is being used all of the time. If there was a problem, then what you would do is you would scale the infrastructure to meet the demands of all customers, but you know all of the time that that infrastructure is being used, and say the connections, the functionality being tested all of the time. That's an active-active environment.
Okay, so you could have half your customers on A and half on B if you wanted to. And I guess if it's physical infrastructure, so if, in other words, we call them a co-location solution where you might be given rack space in a data center, but you own the computers and the software. I suppose in that scenario, you've got to make sure at all times that if A goes down, B's got enough room for all customers without you having to visit site and install some hardware, vice versa. So in a physical colo, if you like, where you own the infrastructure, that sounds expensive. So today, I guess people generally use infrastructure as a service, and there are several major vendors out there who provide that. And in that environment, I guess it's not necessary to maintain all the infrastructure you might need if A failed, because you can, in infrastructure as a service, then what do you do to grow the infrastructure, and how quick can you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So elasticity, so the ability to scale that infrastructure on demand.
So that's what? Say that word again.
Elasticity, so the ability to scale the infrastructure. So very much using metrics and data. So as new connections are formed, as the needs of that infrastructure grows, and you would scale ahead of time. So things like auto-scaling groups allow us, therefore, to scale the infrastructure. And whether that's things like web application firewalls or web servers or telephony servers, whatever infrastructure is needed, is scaled to meet demand. And that's the purpose.
And is that scaling, does that become automatic by some metrics looking at how much headroom you've got and just going, I need another process? Or
yeah, absolutely. It can be done in a number of ways. It could be time-based. It could be based on metrics. There is a number of ways of doing that, and it would depend on the specific use case. But yes, absolutely, it's something which is automated. Metrics can trigger certain events, and then that would scale to meet demand. And it equally could keep scaling. So if there was a sudden burst in activity, then there would be enough infrastructure that would be provisioned and configured to meet demand.
Okay. Sounds pretty cool. So then we come to thinking about individual customers, and in the scenario that we know, you've got node, cloud, data center, whatever you want to call it, A and B, different countries. So is it true, would you say smart customers will go, okay, I'm on a primary, is that what you call it, a primary data center? Let's say they're on A. And they become aware through the conversations that we have that there is a alternate location that we would move them to. Am I right in thinking that there are some customers who say, sounds great, I'd like to test that? And do we let them formally do a test every year, maybe? Is that how it works?
Absolutely. So yes, we would actively encourage customers to move. It is proof of the process. It's easy to do. Some of our customers would have their own internal auditing requirements, and we can provide the process, but equally we can step through the process with them. It's very quick to do, and it's just another way of building confidence in the process. And beyond then just the theory, just a tick box and a document, we can actually demonstrate the process and work with our customers to do that on a frequency that works for them.
Now, final question for me then, because this, I know that within our solution, within a data center or location or node, there's a lot of resilience there with multiple web farms and web servers and telephony servers and database clusters and database systems doing replication and so on, and they're in and out all the time. And so tons of resilience there and blue-green web farms. And that sounds pretty good. Multiple internet connections, loads of telephony connections from different telcos. And the infrastructure as a service provider that we're using, pretty resilient too. So then you sort of say, so why do we do this? If the infrastructure as a service vendor is that good, I think it's called a high availability zone or something like that. But if they're that good, yet we go to the trouble of saying, yeah, but we'll have another one and we'll do this active database replication. Do you have an example? I think there is a well-known one, for us where, did we ever have one of these huge infrastructure as a service systems actually go down? Because I often say, come on, dual power from grid A and grid B and batteries and diesels and air conditioning like you wouldn't believe and everything, it doesn't go down. But that's not true, is it? These do go down.
So we have had situations where we've needed to use it in anger, and definitely having the increased resilience has protected customer service. So absolutely. Actually, we've also used it to migrate customers as well. So we've just been through a process of migrating customers. That process was seamless. So we're using it for planned situations, and we can also use it for unplanned situations. So the answer to that is yes. And in both situations, the more regularly that's tested, the better, because it proves the process. And we've spoken about a few there as to how we prove the process and just make sure that's tested all of the time.
Great. All right. Got to end there. Out of time, Tony. Hope we speak again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.